David Garza has a long list of credits. He's been inducted into the Austin Music Hall of Fame. He's worked alongside the likes of Fiona Apple and Gaby Moreno, both as a producer, a songwriter, and he is an acclaimed performer in his own right.
Found you dancing with the Wisdom Brothers, like white girls, spinning like a disco ball world.
Garza has been making music all his life, and he has a brand new record called Nightwalker. I spoke to David from his home in downtown Los Angeles. So we are talking about Nightwalker, which is your new record that you created during the pandemic, and it's on a 4-track recorder, meaning that you really kind of stripped down the recording process for people who might not understand. Can you walk us through a little bit in terms of creating this record, why you wanted to create this record, and then I've got some questions for you about some of the songs that I really enjoyed.
Sure, man. You know, most records in these last 10 years are done on what's called Pro Tools, which is an infinite amount of tracks. You can lay 100 guitar tracks, 100 bass tracks, whatever you want. There's limitless. I come from the days of 4-track, 8-track, 24-track, and there's a lot of room, there's a lot of wiggle room in Pro Tools, but you can really focus on smaller things. 2 or 3 of the songs were recorded on my cracked, insane iPhone demo. When the pandemic came down in March and April, I had a friend who was very restless and just couldn't stay still. And this friend of mine always thought the same thing about me, which was I can never stay still. I was touring, running, going from place to place. And he would see me walking to and from clubs, and he would call me Nightwalker. So he would call me Nightwalker. And so I wrote this song for him called Nightwalker to him about all the things you can do, as long as you stay at home. Nightwalker, now is not the time to roam. So I recorded that and wrote that, and I recorded that on this phone. And so that's 1 track. And so I sent it to him, and he was like, "Oh my God, I love it." And so yeah, there's a few that are done that way, but 4-track is a really beautiful, element because it's actually a cassette. It is tape, so it has a warmth that analog has.
It's considered by many like antiquated technology, but I think in the hands of a master like yourself, I think then you can really bring it to life.
Thank you, brother. I mean, sometimes people just go, why doesn't my, Judas Priest sound as good on iTunes as it did on the cassette? Well, cassette in 82, 83, whenever it was amazing. Or why doesn't Twin Peaks look as cool on Showtime as it did on my VHS? It's because it's actually tape. So there's tape is a real element,
I don't want to go song by song because we don't have that much time, but there's certainly some tracks that stood out to me. Rosa really stood out to me. There were some lyrics that are just beautiful.
With the piano black hand and guitar brown eyes, she pricks in her says heart and tune. Down the road she flies, I tell you.
And I'll get to you as a lyricist later, but there is someone that I could hear in the background, perhaps singing background on that song. I think that was John C. Reilly, right?
John C. Reilly, yeah.
Yeah, so how did that come up? Because I find him to be such an interesting artist. He is a trained clown, I believe, like formally trained. He's a song and dance man. And he's also does some incredibly irreverent humor with Tim Heidecker and Eric Wareheim. So tell me a little bit about that collaboration.
Well, John, I'm a huge fan of his whole world. He's, it's like knowing him is like knowing Jimmy Durante or knowing one of the greats, and so I don't take his friendship lightly. And he's a fan of mine, which I love and am proud, to say that. And we make music and play, we're always like, just like anybody who has buddies do, send videos of different song ideas. And I sent him that version of Rosa that you heard on the record. And he loved it. He's like, "Oh my God, I love that song. I love that song. I wish I could sing with you. Could I sing? One of these days." And so I was trying to do a different version of the song, and it just didn't feel the right way. And so I just literally, again, on this phone, the version I did, I dumped this onto, and other tracks, and then I had him sing along to the phone. So that's him singing along and, playing maraca and hanging out and giving his energy. And so that was a really, there's professional singers and professional actors, and there's the joke of like every actor wants to be a singer and every singer wants to be an actor, and but with him, and none of those ever come up. He's just a complete artist, and so that's how that came about. Yeah.
I have such respect for his world and your world, so it was great to see them come together on the record. It's funny because I can hear sirens in the background because you live in downtown Los Angeles. I used to live a few blocks from where you live, so I understand that sirens are ever present, and they're actually present in the record as well. Because that's what you were trying to create, right? You were trying to capture this moment, if I'm not mistaken, trying to capture this moment of time as an artist, and that includes your environment.
1000%, and the environment is so real, and again, sonically, the fascinating thing about sirens is there's can be a siren that's a quarter of a mile away down the street, or a car revving up, and and then it reverberates through the buildings, and there's a few times where I was playing the song and I'm like, oh, this is great, this is the take, and then there's a siren, and I just have to keep going through, and I realize that's pushing through. That's what we all have to do, in our lives. This whole year has been like one take that's been, could have been ruined by the motorcycle, or could have been ruined by the siren, and we just let it become part of the palette.
It occurs to me that someone like you, who is a natural performer, and we talked about this, how you love to perform, and whether it's for a crowded, sold out club, or in a bar with 15 people or 10, how has this year been for you? And maybe you can even expand that to others who do what you do. It's for venues, for musicians, this has been just such a terrible year.
It really has. Some musicians really thrive on playing one-to-one. There are some people that probably would rather perform on Skype or Zoom or Facebook Live or Instagram Live because they don't like crowds. Elliott Smith probably would have been loving this world, or Kurt Cobain early in his days before he had to go out and find a band. Right. Nick Drake, Joni Mitchell, there are people that really thrive in that one-to-one thing. I really am kind of the opposite. And this whole pandemic, people have been asking, you should do live streaming, you should do live this, because you're so good at doing that. And I just kind of feel like, I've had 30 plus years of playing. Maybe this is a sign from the heavens to maybe take a little break, because I don't thrive in this kind of environment. I just thrive when this cat is here. Have you guys been noticing this? I did not plan this. This cat loves Robert Holguin. That's all I'm saying.
You can't argue with the cat, man.
You're just sitting here.
The cat knows what's up, okay?
Here we are, babe. I'm sorry. But yeah, I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think it does. I think everyone can treat it differently, and then what you've done is you've used this opportunity to create what we're talking about, which is the new record. And so one of my last questions to you here, David, is I get into a lot of discussions about pop music with people, and I sometimes sound like the old man because I'm just such a fan of the lyricist. I'm such a fan of someone who commits to the poetry of the song. That's why I'm such a big fan of your art. So give me a sense of where you think music stands right now, and perhaps why you remain committed to the artistry of the lyric, which again, I think is something that's always been a signature of yours.
Well, my what's in my blood are two streams. The blood of my ancestors, the Mexican influence, but the blood of my present, which is born in Texas. Tejano, English speaking, English thinking, but I also love the poetry and the songs of the Spanish language as well. So that's at the root of everything, is a deep respect for the rivers that run and the waves that make this beautiful language that we all kind of speak, which is the language of music. So I've just always been really committed to singing songs that have a meaning, and it is difficult to write songs after years and decades where, you go, wait up, I've never been like on, American Bandstand or whatever you want to call it. I've never sold millions of records. Why do I still do this? And you really do have to ask yourself very, very early on in your career why it is that what is you want to do. And I was given this gift of rock and roll at a really young age, and I've been lucky enough to share it. And to be honest, one of the first places where I really, really felt it was in El Paso at Wild Hairs, where I really, in 92, 93, connected with your community. And that's why it's such an honor always to be like connected with Sonic Ranch, and to still be like, I still feel like half of my heart is in the 915, it's just always there. And but I really do feel that it takes a lot of work to write something that rhymes and to write something that feels good. And like they say, it takes 6 months to make sound. It takes 6 months of work to make something that sounds like it took 6 seconds to come up with. And that's every line. So it has to be that fluid, it has to be that natural, but it also has to be that unshakable.
I couldn't help but listen to my favorite track on the record, which was Halo, and I couldn't help but imagine what that would sound like with a full band and with a beautiful delay on that Gretsch of yours, with bass and drums. Do you ever imagine some of these songs coming to life that way?
I may need a producer pretty soon, Robert. You may have to just step in and help me. You got a big room. I could set up a 4-track there.
That's got a good reflection back there, sure.
No, I mean, throughout my career, I have exactly for this reason. Just like you said, hey, have you thought about doing that song this way or that song this way? I mean, that's been the story of my career in a way. I've often revisited songs in different ways, in different tempos, in different keys, with different, I've released something acoustically and then 3 years later done it with a band. And, look at Neil Young. He's someone who I really admire for his ability, and Bob Dylan and Los Lobos for their ability to always keep things fresh. And, I saw Lobos play, speaking of a private party, I saw those guys play a backyard party here at Candela's Guitar. There weren't more than 100 people there. It was a private event, and they busted out La Bamba like you could not believe it. And you would think, oh my God, do these guys really have to play? Do they really want to play it? And they felt it. There were 2 or 3 people screaming for it. And instead of going, well, this is not one of our official gigs, they played it. They played the version of life. And that blew me away to see those guys collectively just embrace this song that they've done a million times and do it fresh. So yeah, you can always bring something fresh to the table.
David Garza, thank you so much for making time and talking to us today from downtown Los Angeles. May you have a wonderful holiday season, and my best to your lovely wife.
You want to admit that, brother? Lots of love, man.
If the world broke in around us, tell me what would they steal? Could they take our hearts and our liberties?